Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Albany City Council meeting for June 18, 2018. Please join Councilmember Pilch in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes and Councilmember Moss is excused, and Councilmember Pilch,
Here.
Vice Mayor Nason, here. Mayor McQuaid.
Here. At the last City Council meeting, we adjourned in memory of Catherine Tubbs. And I made the mistake of referring to her husband as former Albany Police Chief rather than former Albany Fire Chief. And I'm sorry for that mistake. Report on action taken in closed session. Council gave direction to staff. Consent calendar items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or member of the audience wishes to request removal of the item from the consent calendar. I'd like to pull 5.6 and 5.8. Other council members wish to pull anything?
I don't think so.
Any member of the public wish to pull anything? 5.9. I'm sorry, Alan, what? 5.4, okay. All right, we'll start with 5.6. I would just like to note that it is SB1 that is funding the funding source for this project, which is the paving project. And I want to encourage staff to convey that information in any notification of this project. And 5.8. I'd like to congratulate Lieutenant John Geisberger on his appointment as the new Albany Police Chief and invite him up to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for selecting me to be your next police chief. I was truly honored to hear that. I look forward to working with you to keep Albany a safe and welcoming community. I want to reassure you that I will continue to follow the lead of our current chief, and we will continue to be an organization that is transparent, treats people with compassion and dignity, and is very involved with our community. As you know, I started here as a reserve police officer back in 1994, and I feel truly honored to work with a few of the people here in the audience still. And this was a home to me, and to be able to lead this organization into the future is a true honor. So thank you very much. And to the city manager, I want to thank you for your support. I've enjoyed working with you over the last few years and look forward to my new role with you. And Chief McQuiston, I can't thank you enough for all that you have done for me and my family. The leadership you've given to me and the mentoring you have done has been a tremendous impact on me. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie, do you have a comment on that item? Come on up.
I'm probably going to irritate some people, but I'm going to say this anyway. I'm really happy that that you are going to be our new police chief, but I called today to find out how this came about, and I guess you can only look at internal candidates. if you have good internal candidates and not look externally. And I'm concerned about the lack of diversity in the Albany police force, and I would have liked it if, even though I have nothing but respect and love for you, and it's nothing about you, I think that it would have behooved Albany to have made the effort to do an external search for candidates so that we look like and maybe even are trying to increase the diversity of our police force. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5-4. Alan, did you have a question, comment?
Alan Maris, Albany resident. I think this is the right time. I just wanted to thank you for writing the letter to the state and requesting more affordable housing funds if we're going to really address the needs of our homeless and unfortunate people in Albany. We're going to have to get significantly more money, and this is one of the ways of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And 5-9. Leah, come on up. And there goes our audience.
Okay, Leah Burrell, a member of the Diverse Housing Working Group and representing myself. I am a homeless resident of Albany. I presented to Project Hope last fall, September, October. I walked in the door when it was at the church. I said I needed help. They said, we have help. All these fabulous volunteers surged at me, and all of them took me under their wing, and they were very, very helpful and said they had what I needed. I'm disabled. I'm 62. I've been homeless this week for 3 years. At that point, it was 2.5. So I said, okay, I need housing. They said, we got it. They said, your number one first super duper fast track priority on our list. And they said that they could get me housed within a matter of a couple of weeks, and they would pay for things for a long, long time, if not forever. And that was their story. 1 week, and the next week there was a different story, and then the other week it was a third story. They did find me 2 options to get me housed, but those weren't working for my disabilities. They never seemed to hear that I was disabled. They didn't want to deal with it. They didn't understand what it was about. Every week I get a different story from the various people at Berkeley Food and Housing. I was told the budget was this, or was that, or was the other thing to pay for my housing and for how long I would be subsidized and what all they would do for me, but the story kept changing over and over again. When I met with the social worker, she made me feel very small, very inconsequential. I didn't feel that they were sincere. I didn't feel they listened. I didn't feel that they had my interests in mind or at heart. They were just collecting a paycheck for themselves. So it's a full employment act for themselves, and we don't get a lot. I understand the budget for them from you guys, 150 some odd K a year. 35,000 of that goes to help the homeless, and the rest, well, 15 for prevention. Somebody's getting a lot of money off the top and using us as justification for their paycheck. I'm really extremely angry and disappointed with this whole setup. Berkeley Food and Housing, I feel, is totally ineffective. I'm still homeless. 3 years this week of being homeless, 9 months after I presented to this outfit that said to me that they were going to take care of me for life. And then I am learning, after I took it upon myself to try to find my own rental units, they said those kind of things don't exist. And that, by the way, in December, they told me there was no more funding. If they had funding for me in October to carry a budget through to pay my rent forever and ever, where did it go by the time December rolled around? I'm not happy with how I was treated. I'm very disappointed in them, and I don't recommend that you re-up your contract with them. I think they're ineffective. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item?
Alan Maris, I'm a volunteer with Diverse Housing Working Group as well as the Albany Community Services Center. I think this work is necessary and it's very challenging. What I would like to see in this report is the number of clients served, the housing provided, the housing not provided, and the contacts that are made with Albany and the Albany Community Resource Center. We've seen very little of the main navigator who is contracted for. It's difficult to communicate with her. I'd like to see that improve. And Robbie and I have talked about this in the past, but I'm not seeing a lot of improvement. So with the data I'm asking for, I might get a better sense of why she doesn't have time to communicate with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't do it. Okay. Susan Renault, volunteer, Showers Program, Albany Resource Center, a volunteer as well. I agree with Alan. As volunteers, we were left without a leader when our director moved on. And we have been trying very, very hard to work with the person that I guess you call the housing navigator. And I see by this report that a lot of is expected of that position. It seems like for one person, all that you're expecting in regard to finding people, tracking people, even prevention, I guess if people are in insecure housing, and all the reporting requirements, it just really does seem like too much for one person. And we've certainly seen a lot of evidence that it is too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you, I know this is just a halfway through the contract report, and so you're not talking about renewing tonight, but I would encourage you not to renew it in a year, and also to think again about giving this extra, I think it's $50,000. I would encourage you to go down and talk to the people who are experiencing homelessness, who used to be on the bulb, who are scattered here and there, and ask them what they think and get some feedback from them on what would be maybe a different way to go. I have some numbers. Out of the 20 people who BFHP actually assisted into housing, 7 are still housed. Again, only one of them received assistance, case management from them more than a year after the city cleared them off the bulb. Most of them received a mere 3 to 6 months of assistance or case management. 13 people who they once assisted into housing are back on the streets. If BFHP used the state and federally mandated core components of Housing First, those numbers would be vastly different, and their services would actually be worth paying for. This is a report from Amber Whitson, who couldn't be here tonight because they're having a meeting, a community meeting. So I'd like to encourage you to really try to talk to the people, like the person here tonight. Get the real stories. Don't just take the word of the people who are doing it, but go down and talk to people, maybe have a subcommittee. I'd happily volunteer to do that. I'm sure Amber would be a great help, and a lot of the other people. And really find out what the real story is, and maybe there's a way that you could get an organization that would actually be helping. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this topic? Seeing no one, I will accept a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pilch,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason,
Yes.
Mayor McQuay.
Yes, and the motion carries. Good of the city. Good of the city is a time for persons desiring to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note, city policy limits each speaker to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or future agenda. Do we have speakers?
Yes.
All right.
Brian Beal, Larry Hickok, and Larry Okers.
Hi, I'm Brian Beal. I actually had some follow-up comments on the Rent Review Board discussion we had a couple weeks ago, and wanted to talk about a general pattern of conversation and a logical fallacy that happens when we move from the general topic to the specific topic. And Rent Review Board is specifically about when an individual incurs a sudden rent increase. When we talk about the general affordability of housing, and we talk about the average rent, that's not what triggers the sudden rent increase. One person having a rent increase of $1,000 a month doesn't affect the average rent. So everything we're talking about, building affordable housing in Albany, it's all great, but I think you'd probably have to build about 1,000 units or more. I'd like someone to tell me how many units you would have to build in order to stop people from getting big rent increases. So I'll continue the council to continue supporting this effort. But I guess what I wanted to say is this is about real people. It's not just about a business renting units. It's about real people that have to deal with real changes. They're paying 50% of their income for housing. When you get a 50% increase in something that you're paying 50% of your income to, and you don't have comparable pay increases, that's a problem for people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Hickok. I'm the coordinator of East Bay Atheists. I'm also the one who provided the map of the Albany Hill Park, taken from the city's website. And please indulge me if you could look at it for a little bit. I want to address the issue of possibly selling off the parcel. It needs to, is there a way to take it up further because the significant portion is south of that? Yeah. As a way of settling the Establishment Clause issue on the Albany Hill Park, the judge's order clearly states the city would have to sell a significant parcel such that the cross did not appear to be part of the park. The map shows the outline of the property boundaries in green. I've only added a couple of descriptions and the approximate location of the cross. If you look at the cross, in order to meet the judge's requirements, I think it's pretty clear the city would have to sell off all the park property south of the cross and a small section north of the cross, probably up to the crest of the hill. Park boundaries would have to be clearly delineated on the fire road to meet the judge's requirements. But this would not address the issue that most people only see the cross from afar when it's illuminated. Furthermore, meeting minimal constitutional requirements is not the same as meeting the ethical diversity standards, which you folks have stressed continually on this, and rightfully so. Instead of a park that spans Albany Hill, we would have one that barely spans the northern two-thirds of the hill. It would mean the park, would lose its best viewpoint, now claimed by the cross. It would decimate the park. Also, the fair market value of this land is minimal. It's encumbered with the easement for the cross, and development of any kind is prohibited. Thus, in return for spoiling the park, the city would receive little money for the land. I urge you to continue to pursue the only fair solution to this problem, the removal of the cross with little or no compensation to the Lions Club. Please continue to do the right thing. Please ensure that future city councils will not have to address this issue again. You know what that's like. Thank you.
Thank you.
After Mr. Oker, it would be Amy Neal and Brian Martin.
Hi, City Council. I'm Larry from United Transmission in Albany, a family business. We've been there for over 40 years, trying to address the parking problem and to keep the bike lane hopefully active, but to keep the cars as a boundary. I've been talking to a few of the moms on Albany Hill. They're afraid of their kids riding next to the San Pablo Avenue, especially when lately, last few months, there have been a few high-speed chases through Albany with Oakland PD, El Cerrito PD, people doing like 80 miles an hour. I mean, it just takes one of those crazy guys just to hit a car and send it up into the sidewalk to hurt many people. And we're starting to see more and more of cars out of control and crashing into people. And at least with cars on the San Pablo Avenue, instead of bike lane there, it'll be a buffer, something to protect. And like I say, all the businesses in our location are wanting to have that crossing light. It's a great idea. But like I say, instead of losing parking, because the city, Solano Association and Chamber of Commerce, they were telling me within the last year, we lost 29 parking spots for the businesses through the city of Albany. So like I say, if we try to keep the parking loss down and use the cars as a buffer on San Pablo Avenue instead of using pedestrians walking right next to the San Pablo, because of the times are going definitely a little crazier out there with people driving with road rage and everything else. I thank you guys for your time, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Amy Neal. I'm a 24-year resident of Albany, and I'm the spokesperson for the community group Albany Hill Park for All. I have a statement, but just before I read the statement from our group, just for the benefit of the people here, maybe just say that a federal judge ruled that the cross on Albany Hill is unconstitutional on Friday. He did not order the city to sell the land. It's one possible option that he suggested. There are other options, so I just maybe wanted to clarify that while people are listening to us. So the statement from Albany Hill Park for All is this. As expected, a federal judge has ruled that the cross in Albany Hill Park is an unconstitutional endorsement of religion on public land. We are grateful to the city of Albany that you properly want to correct the situation and remove the cross. We call on the Lions Club to stop its divisive attempts to force this Christian religious symbol on the diverse community of Albany. And our goal is to create a more welcoming and inclusive Albany for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Martin. I'm a 13-year resident of Albany. I read the recent court decision on the cross on Albany Hill. The judge has said clearly the public park with the cross violates the Establishment Clause, which is fantastic that he found in that way, which of course is the First Amendment of the Constitution. It's unconstitutional in our public park. Because of that, it is what we all thought, illegal to keep it in our public park. I think I speak for the many residents, including Christian clergy, who contacted the City Council via email or in person in saying thank you, City Council, for standing for a more inclusive Albany that doesn't favor one religion over others and over non-religion in our public park. The judge goes on to say the city must remedy its First Amendment violation. The judge recommends two remedies. I am very concerned that one remedy is to sell the park land at fair market value such that the subdivision must be coherent, quote, subdivision must be coherent, separate parcel in such a manner that the public may recognize that the cross no longer stands on public land. So, if the land is to be sold, he appears to be requiring a significantly sized, not postage stamp parcel carved out of our park. A sale of any amount of the park land is not acceptable for our city for many reasons, including turning public land to private land goes against everything the city has tried to do for decades. The city has been using Measure R funds and other resources to acquire private land to preserve the open space and protect the park. Selling parkland there is the exact opposite of what the city has been doing and goes against the city's own 2012 master plan for the park. Selling a significant parcel, as the judge would require of a sale, would quite possibly split the park in two, for the reasons we have seen, or can render the entire bottom third of it or so completely useless. Selling the parkland leaves de facto the same situation we already have, a cross visible for miles when lit or unlit, seeming to come from our public park, with the only difference being a slip of paper in the drawer of a county office. Meanwhile, the Lions are now lighting it as some kind of misguided war memorial that only honors people of one faith. I ask myself, why would a service organization in possession of an easement on an item which a federal court has ruled is illegal where it is now, why would that organization not immediately simply remove the cross themselves? And if their goal is to extract a sizable sum from the city, I don't know why they would ever again call themselves one of the thousands of non-sectarian Lions clubs that are doing such great things around the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margie Marks, Kathy Deal, and Evelyn Shin.
Good evening, City Council. Margie Marks. I'm not talking about rent review tonight, but I am talking about a subject that I spent actually many weeks before the City Council in 2009 and 2010 talking to them about, and I want to remind you about it because I understand from the last meeting that the city is going to contract out the crossing guard services for the city of Albany. Now, I'm not generally in favor of the city contracting out services. I think you lose control. It's a sensitive area, and we don't know who they're hiring, but I just wanted to remind the city that in 2010, the City Council did pass a living wage ordinance. So it would take place in a situation like this, where the city is going to contract out. And in 2010, the living wage was $11.93 per hour, including wages and health benefits, paid by the employer, and $13.54 per hour with no health benefits. So I would really, whoever is going to be negotiating that contract with about the crossing guards, I would ask them to please look. It is going to be a contract that's worth more than $25,000. And I would ask them to please take into consideration so that we are paying these people a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Deal. I'm a member of the Social and Economic Justice Commission, but I'm speaking for myself this evening, and I'm here to make the council and the public aware that on Saturday, June 23rd, there will be a rally against separating immigrant families in San Francisco at the War Memorial and Performing Arts Center. It will take place from 10 a.m. to 11:30. So that's Saturday, June 23rd in San Francisco, 10 a.m. to 11:30 at the San Francisco War Memorial and Performing Arts Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
After Evelyn would be Alan Maris and Julie Winkelstein.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Shen. I've been a resident of Albany for 14 years. We've moved here for the schools and for the progressive community, and my partner Jen and I have really enjoyed raising our kids here. And I just want to say, from the folks who came up here to talk about getting rid of the cross for affordable housing, better services for homeless folks, supporting immigrant families right now, this is why I moved to Albany. So I've also seen harmful dynamics in Albany around race and gender and class, and we need to make some changes. People talked about housing, with the housing prices going up, there's such little affordable housing being built. We need to figure out how to be much more inclusive around middle income and poor people who are being pushed out. Teachers can't afford to live here, and with the incidents like the Instagram account last year, we know that African Americans and other people of color do not feel like their voices are being heard on multiple levels. And when you look up the makeup of the City Council and the school board, we need to be much more diverse. So I am here to ask the council to respect the school board's request to put ranked choice voting on the ballot for electing the school board. I'm also the executive director of Forward Together, which is a national nonprofit based in Oakland that works with over 200 organizations across the country. We're changing policies and culture so that we can have a much more inclusive democracy. People will vote if they know their vote will make a difference. And with ranked choice voting, people have a higher chance of electing someone they want, and they will vote more often because they know that their vote really counts in a proportional way. One of the states we work in is New Mexico, and this year Santa Fe implemented ranked choice voting for the first time to great success. Voter turnout soared and surpassed turnout in 2014 and 2017, and the diversity of the City Council is much more inclusive, with women, including women of color, now holding 4 of 8 City Council seats. So if we adopt this, we can join our progressive sister cities, San Francisco and Oakland, in using ranked choice voting to bring out voter turnout and to create better vehicles for underrepresented communities to have a voice. This is a much better alternative than dividing up the districts into districts, so I'm also asking that at least one person on the council's majority reconsider dividing Albany up and keeping Albany whole, because keeping Albany whole while adopting ranked choice voting will be a much better choice. We have the power to make changes that will make a big difference in maintaining the true principle of what democracy can mean for everyone, and I feel like everyone in this room, at least the people that I've spoke to, are really doing their best to make sure and hold Albany accountable for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Maris, Albany resident. I'd like to thank you for last week's decision to support the crossing guards. The University of California, I believe, backed out of supporting the crossing guards. The city school district is operating at a budget, structural budget deficit. They're losing money every year. It's hard for them to afford it. So I just want to thank you for stepping up. These streets the kids cross are city streets, and it's a part of our mandate, I think, as a city to protect families and children. So thank you. Based on what this last speaker said, I think another way to create more inclusive and diverse city councils and school boards is to reduce the cost of a campaign. We just recently had a primary campaign, and one issue in particular was the candidate for assembly, state assembly, our 15th district. And one candidate spent at least 4 times more than any of the other candidates, at least based on my analysis of stacking up campaign brochures that landed on my front porch. I think and that doesn't create an equal playing field. There were some very good candidates who got far fewer votes. And it's not absolutely clear that the money made a difference, but because that candidate who got the most votes could have been a very good candidate. I didn't have an opportunity to really research her or meet her, but so I think another way to be more inclusive is reduce the cost of campaigning for these positions. At one time, Albany did subsidize the fee that the county charges for each candidate, and that might make it more affordable. And I think the document that the county provides for the election provides some of the most reliable information to the voters as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
To add on to the conversation about diversity and inclusiveness, I see that you have a statement at the beginning. I noticed it. I don't remember when I started noticing this was on here, the members of the Albany City Council statement. So I just wanted to suggest some things to include. We, the members of the Albany City Council, would like to reaffirm that we welcome and value all of our diverse community members. Right now, this, regardless of where they are from, whom I think is what you wanted to say there, whom they love. I encourage you to say also their gender identity, how they worship, how they look, their abilities, their housing status, or how they vote. So I think that would be an improvement, and I have it written down if you'd like to have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on. Council member reports on meetings attended, announcement of future meetings, city manager reports. My report on the Public Safety Policy Committee is in our packets and was in the back of the room. I also was fortunate enough to go to the Albany High School Venture Program Chamber of Commerce Mixer, the East Bay Community Energy launch with council members Pilch and Moz. We had a 2x2x2 with the school district and the university. Several of us were at Coffee with the Cops a few weeks ago. I participated in a conference call with climate mayors, and Vice Mayor Nason and I attended the mayor's conference. Other reports?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I also attended the EBC launch event. You attended as well, or no? Rochelle?
No, I wasn't at the EBCE.
Okay, and I attended the League of California Cities Environmental Quality Policy Committee meeting, at least actually the last part of it. and we discussed a bill addressing limiting the use of plastic straws, which is something that a number of cities have started doing, and that had a lot of support among the committee, actually. And I also attended briefly Coffee with Cops, and just wanted to say that with regard to EBC launch event, there's an Assembly Bill 813, which is a bill that proposes to regionalize the power grid in the western states. There was an article in the Chronicle this past Sunday about it. We are gathering more information about it because we've been hearing from many sides about this, and the rhetoric is heating up, so we'll pay attention to that. It'll likely be discussed at the EBC meeting on Wednesday, and I think that's it.
Well, I don't have anything to add. I was at a number of these meetings, as mentioned. I think I would like to say that the Alta Bates task force is meeting tomorrow, and I want to encourage people that the full closure date is still coming at us. The heart disease, the heart attack and stroke treatment is already gone, and if people are interested in getting involved, I'd love to hear from you.
Do we have a city manager report?
Yes, I'd like to remind the council and the public of a upcoming presentation that will be held at our Public Works Center, 540 Cleveland Avenue. It's regarding the monarch butterfly study for Albany Hill. The plan is to meet at the Public Works Building, receive a presentation, and then also walk the hill. This will be held on June 27th at 10 a.m. Also, our first of our sidewalk repair projects will be underway starting this Monday. We look forward to seeing those sidewalk repair improvements in the ground. You'll also see, if you're walking up Solano Avenue, a number of sidewalk shavings that have occurred to help level the sidewalk. These are a nice improvement for the short-term fix as we continue to improve our walkability. And also, thanks again for those who attended Coffee with the Cops on the Albany Greenway. This was our police chief and our soon-to-be, actually, as of tonight, police chief's great idea to meet the community in their neighborhood. And I really appreciate the extension that the police department is demonstrating in this regard. And lastly, a fun opportunity this Friday night, is a comedy night at the community center at 8 p.m., stand-up comedy. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Presentation, Satellite Affordable Housing Associates presentation, company overview and property at northeast corner of Washington Avenue and Cleveland Avenue. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening. I don't actually have a formal staff report for you on this item, but to just kind of give some context for the audience, the city right now is in negotiations with Satellite Affordable Housing Associates, also known as SAHA, to do an affordable housing project within the city. Right now, as you saw on the agenda, we had a closed session to discuss some of those preliminary terms. And we wanted to take this time to give you an overview of the company. We have a representative here who's going to present on SAHA, kind of what they do, who they are, and with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Aubrey Levine. I'm the Associate Director of Real Estate Development for SAHA, or Satellite Affordable Housing Associates. And I'm really thrilled to be here tonight to introduce you to SAHA and, as Ann said, a little bit more about what we do. So, do you want to see? Okay, great. So SAHA has over 50 years of experience developing, managing, and owning award-winning properties throughout the Bay Area. Our 65 communities provide safe, beautiful, and high-quality housing for over 4,000 low-income families and special needs households, including over 300 previously homeless households. Our work is inspired by our mission to provide quality homes and services that empower people and strengthen neighborhoods. Not looking. It's made possible by a high level of sophistication and service from all three of our program areas, and they are real estate development, property management, and resident services. The SAHA real estate development team oversees all phases of a project's development, including site acquisition, managing design and entitlement, securing project financing, and overseeing construction completion. We have a proven track record in securing competitive public financing and conventional debt from a variety of lenders. And on every project, the architectural team is carefully chosen to ensure it has the right design aesthetic for the surrounding neighborhood. We especially enjoy working in partnership with local governments and community members to plan and design housing that meets the local needs, integrates the existing architectural context, and contributes to the community at large. Our property management team employs 125 full-time staff, including supervisors, site managers, maintenance, and janitorial staff. They're responsible for providing a wide range of services, including responding to residents' needs, concerns, carrying out day-to-day maintenance of our properties, and coordinating capital improvements like a roof replacement. Our resident services program provides personalized supportive services to all families and individuals living in our properties. Currently employ 40 full-time staff, 6 bus drivers. We have a transportation program, and a community engagement team, which utilizes over 400 volunteers a year. More than 99% of seniors and 60% of our families engage in our services annually. We deliver a comprehensive array of programs designed to help families and individuals form and strengthen social connections, develop new skills, and maintain the best possible physical, emotional, and cognitive health. The programs include social and recreational activities, community gardening, exercise and health classes, financial literacy, civic engagement opportunities, after-school activities, and referrals to other partners. And we function best with the close collaboration between all three program areas, ensuring timely feedback on design decisions, programmatic choices. There's a real feedback loop within the organization. Property management and resident services work closely together on site, and that information comes back to the development team so we can ensure that we're improving the quality of our programming and design. We take great pride in ensuring that proposed projects representative of the community's needs and values, as well as beautiful and welcoming home for our residents. This generous community room, it's indoor, outdoor, expands outdoor into the outdoor courtyard, is at Lakeside Senior Apartments, which is right downtown near Lake Merritt in downtown Oakland, provides 100 affordable apartments for seniors. This next slide features the overflowing community garden at Valley Oaks, which is a 43-unit family property in Sonoma. SAHA builds with the end user in mind. Arboleda Apartments, a 48-unit property in Walnut Creek, serves families and those with developmental disabilities. Here we utilize turf. You can see the lawn area is actually turf, which is great for maintenance. And it provides a lawn area that's accessible for all of our residents. And it's a family property, of course, so we have a play structure as well. Oh. Backwards. And finally, SAHA is committed to developing healthy buildings for the health of our residents, staff, and the planet. Our Merritt Crossing development in downtown Oakland achieved a LEED Platinum rating from the U.S. Green Building Council and also received a Top 10 award from the American Institute of Architects Committee on the Environment. As I hope you can see, SAHA is deeply committed to the long-term health, maintenance, and quality of each of our properties, and we are truly honored to be partnering with the City of Albany to bring much-needed affordable family housing to those in need. That's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions from council? Michelle?
No.
Do we have any public comment on this?
Yes.
Kathy Deal, and I went over the staff report. It looks like you're just kind of in the preliminary stages of, you're not even near a design or anything, but you are moving ahead, and we're really happy to hear that. One of my concerns, though, is I looked at the map, and I saw where the location of this site is, and I'm sure you're probably aware of the concern regarding coal trains bringing coal into the Port of Oakland, and apparently these tracks on this map are the same ones that would carry those coal cars. And the coal cars, you probably know, are open. They can't be enclosed because it's off-gassing, and it would get to the point where it would be explosive. And that was part of why Sierra Club and the City Council of Oakland fought that plan by the developer. Unfortunately, they lost the court case for the time being. And we don't really know what the ultimate outcome will be, but this is something that needs to be taken into consideration if you're going to locate affordable housing next to potential coal emissions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Maris, Albany resident and a member of Diverse Housing Working Group. I'm concerned about the pace of this project. I believe I understood back in January that SAHA was being contracted. At least their name came up and they were being considered, and 5 months later, we're still looking at the contract. It seems like an unusual delay to me. The questions I'd like to ask our presenter, and I'm concerned about getting funding from Measure 1A, affordable housing from the county, and they have some sort of time limits on when you have to use the money. So I'd like to know how long it's going to take to complete this project once you start, in considering developing the financing, the concept design, possibly a contract design before it goes to the county for an A1 of bond measure approval of funding. And then the start of construction, completion of construction, and approximately how long this whole process might take. Is she able to respond?
Let's get all the comments, and we'll have a comment,
Thank you.
or do it at the end.
My name's Nancy Tyler. I've lived in Albany off and on since 1990. But my question is very simple. What is affordable housing? Because if you have, I'm talking like buying a house now, if you have a house, not unusual for $1 million here, maybe if it was half price for $500,000, it would be kind of affordable, but it really isn't affordable. So for what is affordable, and like I'm in an apartment, and if my rent goes up much, I'm not going to be able to live here. So I was just wondering about that. And also, 3 cheers for the crosswalk by AM/PM, where I walk there all the time. It is so great, right on. I mean, you guys did a great job. I don't fear for my life as much as I used to. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Beal, and I guess I haven't looked at this in too much detail, but my reaction to the presentation is that this looks nice. It looks aesthetically pleasing. In regards to the location, I think the challenge is we don't have a lot to work with right now. So I think there'll have to be something done if we're going to use this location. Something will have to be done to mitigate noise and air pollution and so forth. But with the lack of any other qualifying property, I mean, I would like to see some of the vacant lots on Solano Avenue turned into affordable housing. But I think that's, that's time away from now. So yeah, I think we're going in a good direction here. I'll be anxious to see more as this develops. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margie Marks. One definition of affordable housing is that it doesn't cost more than 30% of your income to pay for your housing costs, is one definition of it. So it varies, but I'm really happy. I worked really hard, was along with other people in this room to make sure that we passed A1. I'd really like to see in my lifetime some apartment building built here in Albany, and I understand in other cities that they make the developers set aside a certain number of units for below market housing. I would like to see the city council do that. I mean, even if we ended up building 10 tiny homes on that site, it would be 10 affordable housing for 10 families in Albany, and I would really like to see that before I die. So I'm really putting it on the three of you to make my bucket list of affordable housing in Albany come to fruition. But I think this is great. I'm really happy to hear about the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leah Burrell, representing myself at this point. I really loved what I saw with the presentation. I would like to move in immediately. With that having been said, I'm thinking that as we go on in time, as the economy gets crazier, the politics get crazier, the housing here gets less and less affordable for normal people, that we need to find ways to expedite these projects, find more creative ways to move them along faster so that people like myself doesn't have to spend my retirement years in my van. As Margie said, yeah, let's get it happening in our lifetime instead of maybe the next century out or something. Environmental concerns are always top on my list too, but so are housing needs. So if in this whole project you're working on, can you find a way to move forward in a faster way so we can get this done before people like myself with my disabilities, they get worse and worse and my health deteriorates and then I will need assisted living before I want it. So anyway, it's a beautiful plan. Go for it. I want a place to live now. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Could you then come up and respond to the questions, please? And I'm sorry, could you tell me your name again?
Sure, it's Abra Levine. And did you have any questions that you'd like me to respond to as well?
I think just the ones that were asked by the public.
Okay, so the two that I had were, what is affordable housing and how long will it take to build this project? Both are fantastic questions. So someone had mentioned that affordable housing is housing that's no more than 30% of your income, and that is how the rent for our apartments are calculated as a percentage of the income. The incomes that we're targeting are another kind of buzzword. We're looking at a percentage of the area median income, and that income is determined at a county level. As an example, for a family of 4 in Alameda County, I believe last year, we're in the mid-80s, was the 100% area median income. So the housing that we're building is targeting generally 60% and less of that area median income. So a family of 4 making somewhere around $50,000, $50,000, $60,000 And then, that there's different income levels beyond that, or below that. So does that answer the question about what is affordable housing? Yes? Okay. Right, yeah, and I don't know off the top of my head what the income levels are, but if you can look on the HUD website, it's a nationally published statistic and measurement. So in terms of how long it will take, another great question. And I would say that you're right, you're well-versed in the development process. There are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and they all take a little bit of time. Construction right now in the Bay Area is challenging. There's a labor shortage, and so projects are taking a little bit longer to build than they used to. So I'd say, the construction piece is probably optimistically 12 months, probably more like 15 months. And the A1, the concern about A1 funds, my understanding is that the county has given cities a certain number of years, I believe, 3 years, to commit those funds. So we're still well within that window and not at risk of losing that commitment. And I commend the city and the council for acting now in order to capitalize. And I'm sorry? No, the first NOFA was just released this past fall, just about 6 months ago. Yeah. So, yeah, we're still well within the window, and committing those funds is what they need to basically just tell the county that they want to commit them to a certain project. And then, so in terms of overall timeline, there's an entitlements process and a community engagement process. And then the financing part, which the A1 funds will certainly help. So I think that generally development projects, like what we would likely propose for this site, is probably a 2 years optimistically, probably more closer to 3 from now until completion of construction. Yeah. I like that attitude.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council or comments? Great. Well, thank you for coming, and we look forward to watching this project develop. Okay, where are we? Okay, we'll now have a public hearing on Ordinance 2018-04, amendments to Section 20.40.040, density bonus of the Albany Municipal Code. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening. I'm not going to be the staff person presenting this. Jeannie Iceberg, who is a contract planner who works for us and has been working on this project, will give you the staff report presentation. Just to give the council kind of a big picture framework of how this has evolved. As you all know, there were several housing laws that went into effect on the first of the year. 4 of those dealt specifically with density bonus regulations. So that would be AB 2501, AB 2442, AB 2556, and AB 1934. So when we took this to Planning Commission, we were working within the framework of taking our ordinance to be consistent with these newly adopted and implemented state housing bills. It was not intended to be a rewrite of the ordinance. It was simply intended to bring us into consistency with regulations that had gone into effect. And so with that, we had 3 meetings with Planning and Zoning Commission, one on March 28th, one on April 11th, and most recently on May 23rd. And in that, the commission was quite thoughtful in their comments. But I do want to point out that there was not much in the way of discussion from members of the public, even though we had public hearings. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor McQuaid and members of the council. Again, I'm Jean Iceberg, the contract planner for this density bonus ordinance amendments item. So state density bonus law provides an opportunity for developers to build additional units above what would otherwise be allowed above the base density in exchange for providing either affordable units or senior housing units. In 2016, the state legislature made changes to density bonus law to encourage housing production and make it easier for applicants to take advantage of state law. So changes to the ordinance would bring it into conformance with state law, as Ann said. The red lines for the ordinance are shown in attachment 1. In some places, this means removing clauses where they are redundant or inconsistent with state law, in others adding new text to clarify the law's application. So 8 key points in the amendments. First, the city can require applicants to provide reasonable documentation stating why they qualify for a density bonus, but cannot require developers to prepare additional reports. So essentially, this shifts the burden of proof to the city. Second, local governments can only deny a requested incentive or concession if it does not result in identifiable cost reductions. So again, shifting that burden of proof. Third, acknowledges that eligible projects can elect to obtain flexibility in development standards, but do not need to receive a density bonus to utilize this state law mechanism. So if you think of Belmont Village, they received a parking reduction, but didn't actually need a density bonus increase. Fourth, distinguishes between waivers, which are generally relief from physical development standards, so things like setbacks or height, from concessions and incentives, which is other relief that results in identifiable cost reductions. So incentives or concessions could be things like differences in unit size or amenities, appliances, materials in affordable units versus market rate units. Fifth, the amendments identify procedures and timelines for processing a density bonus application. So attachments 3 and 4 in the packet are an estimated timeline for approval of a density bonus project in the city and submittal requirements. So again, just documentation that state law wanted to see cities providing. Sixth, the amendments clarify that a request for a parking reduction does not count towards the incentives and concessions that an applicant is eligible for. So you can get the parking reduction, you can get an unlimited number of waivers, but you're only eligible for 1, 2, or 3 concessions depending on the level of affordability and the number of units that you're providing. Seventh, expands application of the law to developments for foster youth, for disabled veterans, homeless persons, units that are restricted to very low income levels. And then lastly, the amendments allow specific parking ratios for projects, including those located near transit. These are generally slightly lower than the city's requirements, although with recent changes to the city's parking requirements, they are fairly similar. As Ann mentioned, the Planning Commission reviewed and provided feedback on the amendments at a study session and at a hearing where they recommended that the council amend the ordinance just last month. We did receive one comment letter, which has been forwarded to the council via email. And staff's recommendation is to introduce ordinance number 2018-04 for a first reading. This would be amending section 20-40-040 density bonus of the Albany Municipal Code. A second reading would be anticipated for July 2nd if the council took action tonight.
And I just want to add one thing for the council's benefit. We actually had a study session last Wednesday before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a density bonus application for a townhouse project at Portland and Canes. It's the rear portion of the parking lot at Aosin. Historically, it was Sizzler. So we actually do have something tangible to look at. And, you know, occasionally I had another inquiry on Friday about a potential density bonus application. So just something to be aware of.
Are there questions from council?
No.
Nick, do you have any questions?
Just I think you stated this, but is this pretty much purely an update to conform with state law, or did we also slip in a few tweaks as well where it made sense?
This is really an update based on the changes in state law, but related to that, there was some, as you can see, we redlined out a lot of text that was just either confusing or sort of conflated the waivers and concessions thing.
Okay.
And just one other thing to point out, we had previously amended the ordinance in 2014. There were changes that came in after that that were never properly amended into the code, so this reflects all of the different housing bills over the last 4 years.
Oh, I see. Other state bills came
Yeah,
in and
as
had-
Craig will joke, it seems like once we amend it, new regulations come into play. And in fact, it's very likely there will be new regulations on the 1st of next year.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No.
I do have one question regarding senior citizen housing. Is there a financial means test, or is it simply any housing that includes residents 55 and over is able to apply for a density bonus?
Right, there is no income restriction on the senior units.
Can we put one? Would we want to put one?
We need to be consistent with state law, so no.
Okay.
A senior housing development that's market rate, again, that Belmont Village example, so they qualified as an eligible density bonus project even though there were no affordable units.
Right. Okay. Okay, is there any public comment?
So density bonus is, Alan Maris, Albany resident, density bonus is a little bit of a mystery to me. I assume it applies to fairly large new construction projects, new housing projects. But does it also apply to the single-family owner trying to add a secondary unit? It doesn't?
No, it does not.
Okay. So this is strictly for large construction. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? I will close the public hearing. Bring it back for final comments from council. I'll entertain a motion to introduce the ordinance. Okay, I'll make the motion since I'm going to read it. I move we introduce ordinance 2018-04 for first reading, amend section 20.40.404 density bonus of the Albany Municipal Code.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pilch,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason,
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid.
Yes, and the motion carries. Okay, the second item for public hearing on the levy of assessments within Assessment District number 1988-1, 1996-1 for fiscal year 2018-19 pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. May we have a staff report, please?
The public hearing on the levy of assessment within assessment districts number 1981-1 and 1996-1 for the upcoming fiscal year. Let me provide some background. The assessment districts, both of them 1988-1 and 1996-1, were formed pursuant to the Lighting and Landscaping and Lighting District Act of 1972. The act requires each year for the fiscal year that an assessment is to be levied. The council must take 4 actions. So just as a reminder, on May 21st, 2018, council took two of these actions on both of these assessment districts. One, to adopt a resolution directing the assessment district engineer to file a report. Second, adopting a resolution preliminarily approving the report, directing city clerk to provide notice of the intent of the council to levy and collect assessments for the next fiscal year. Tonight, we have 2 items. One is to conduct the public hearing upon the improvements, budget, and assessments that are proposed to be levied, and two, adopt a resolution confirming the diagram and the assessments for the next fiscal year, levying of the assessment, and ordering of the levy with Alameda County. So for lighting and landscaping assessment district number 1988-1, there are 3 items that this district provides funding for: street tree maintenance, park maintenance, playfields, waterfront park maintenance, and waterfront park maintenance. So there are no changes to the annual assessment, and as before, their assessment has not changed since 1993-94 fiscal year. For 1996-1, which is Measure R, the funding is split specifically 50% to open space, 25% to plate fields, and 25% to creek restoration. The majority of funds are used to pay back the debt service on bonds that were issued in 1998. The debt service runs through 2019. Again, there are no changes to the assessments, and there have been no changes. There have been no increases since the district was formed in '96, and the funding sources will expire in 2019. Recommended action is to conduct the public hearing and then to adopt the 2 resolutions, 2018-83 and 2018-84. Both resolutions have the following language: is to confirm the assessment district diagram as described in full detail in the annual report on file with the clerk. Levying of an assessment for fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Ordering of the levy, which includes order NBS to prepare and submit the levy assessment district to Alameda County for placement on the FY 2018-19 secured property tax rolls.
Any questions?
No. Yes. We are able to, and under these landscape and lighting districts, we're able to change the amount levied every year?
That's correct.
Okay, and I didn't catch it, but didn't catch both of them, but in one case, we haven't made a change since '93, and in the other one, perhaps the same?
96, I believe.
96, okay. And why has the city chosen, you might not know, but perhaps Nicole would know, why has the city chosen not to change the amount levied, and why are we not changing it this year?
The maintenance obligations remain fairly steady in terms of what is funded by these 2 funding sources, and in particular for 96-1, given the percentage allocations, we have found that the steady rate is adequate for the services rendered from these funds.
All right, thank you.
Is there any public comment? Come on up.
Alan Maris, Albany resident. During the public speaking part of our meeting, a gentleman suggested we sell some of the parkland that the cross is on. I mean, how would that impact the parkland that we're purchasing under this levy, or that we've already purchased? If we were to follow this gentleman's suggestion, not that we have to, but
Nobody.
does the question not make sense?
No, the question makes sense.
The question makes sense, although nobody was advocating for that.
Yeah, I know it's way too early. We just had this suggestion, but if it did become
That was a suggestion of the judge.
It was one of the options that the judge mentioned in his
So,
decision, but it isn't.
I guess I'm just concerned if we follow through, what would be the impact on this?
Well, I don't think we know that at this point.
But is it land that we purchased under this levy?
We're not prepared to address that, and we
No,
have not purchased
this was-
land in
I understand, that's
this Albany Hill.
We bought this a long time before Measure R.
Yeah.
It was a mitigation.
Is there any other public comment? Then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. If there are no more comments, can I get a motion to adopt these 2 resolutions?
So moved.
Second?
Poll the council, please.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid?
Yes, and the motion carries. That brings us to new business. Update to the 2018-19 operating budget and appropriating funds and approving the updated fiscal year 2017-18, 2018-19 salary schedule for city employees. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an update of your two-year budget. Again, the full two-year budget will come to the council, beginning with our early planning in the next upcoming year. In terms of an update, I will walk you through the general programmatic updates and then defer to our interim finance director to give some discussion of the overall figures. There are some amendments to the operating budget. First, I'd like to say that the budget is balanced. That's the first thing we always look for, of course. But what you will see in terms of the proposed amendments are response to new program areas that the council has directed, as well as facilitating the sugar sweetened beverage tax funding program. I'd like to direct your attention to attachment 2 to your staff report, which really defines the expenditure program in a formal sense for the first year of the sugar sweetened beverage tax. You'll see that the items are prioritized based on council direction over the last several meetings. The first priority is the 7 water bottle filling stations in our public parks and community center. The next is the funding for the crossing guard program, a contractual agreement that continues to be in negotiation, which staff will return to the council hopefully by the second meeting in July with additional contract information. The remaining items are prioritized as 3A through D, which are educational and programmatic opportunities to encourage healthy lifestyle. You'll see that the overall funding for this program is included as still under what we anticipate to receive in any given year for this first funding year. Continuing on to the other updates, the high-level updates in the proposed budget, 2 of them are programmatic in terms of improving services to the community. The first is a neighborhood services program, which will be comprised of a number of customer service level initiatives for our community. It really focuses on community building, finding a program manager to be out and about in the community, to prepare our community in a sustainable way, a resilient way for a number of things that they may face at any given time. These include both public safety and disaster preparedness outreach and engagement, as well as connection to human services programs, including our Community Resource Center, senior services, and other additional housing issues that may be faced in the community. We envision this to be a neighborhood services manager who will help coordinate a number of efforts and initiatives within the city to our community. We also have proposed a human resources entry-level position to assist with some of the day-to-day obligations and growing obligations of managing a city staff and ensuring that we remain trained and up to speed with our growing public, and also ensuring that our staff are fully equipped to perform their duties. And you will also see in the budget an update to the classifications within the city's recreation department to ensure adequate capacity for that department as their roles continue to expand. There is also a parity for the city department heads of each of our departments to ensure equity among those positions. And that summarizes the overall programmatic updates, and I will turn it over to Elizabeth to walk you through the financials.
Okay, the second year update is a mid-cycle, pretty thorough review evaluation of the 2-year budget cycle. This second year update involved reviewing each of the townwide or the citywide revenues and departmental expenditures. The staff report and the city manager's presentation explains the major changes that we are proposing. The table on page 4 lists miscellaneous professional services and risk management as an additional. We didn't go into quite as much detail there. What that involves is additional consulting. The town's going through some changes, major programs coming on, and so the consulting services are to maintain service levels. There's also been an increase in the risk management that the town's involved in. The premiums are increasing in that area, and that's included in that $721,000 item there. We've reviewed everything, as I said, and I'm pleased to announce that the city is still in very sound financial condition. The revenues are projected to exceed the expenditures by $1.78 million. I know a lot of cities would be delighted with that number, so you're to be congratulated on your prudent financial management. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions?
I think most of my questions have been answered. I've been through 2 sets of meetings on this, but I did see that I have an email from you. There was one issue that I asked about the service charges, and it appears from your email that that was a big variance that was just a change in the system, in the accounting system from year to year.
What it is it's a reporting, it's a presentation, how certain expenses got categorized. And we can line up the last year presentation and this year presentation and tell you exactly what got changed. Because the city has some new accounting software, we're still getting used to it, and the report in the prior year put some of the special revenues into the general fund column. That's been corrected for the years moving forward, and it involves some police revenues that were actually special revenues instead of general revenues. So we can, when we do the detail in this lining things up side by side, we can tell you exactly what the funds are that moved. And it is, again, the dollars are still there, they're just put in a different category.
A different place, okay. And what is the status of our audit at this time? We're, in a perfect world, we'd love to get the CAFR for the preceding year before we adopt a budget for the coming year, because we don't have the most current information. How are we doing with that?
Right. We are working on it. We are making some progress. There were some issues that were causing problems in the beginning of the new software. Unfortunately, they weren't recognized until later, and so they continued long enough so that it takes a little longer to get those straightened out. But we are getting those issues straightened out. We're identifying some enhancements along the way about how to make things run smoother. So we are still probably, we're hoping to bring the audit to council in the beginning of September, because August council it's kind of a vacation month. So we're aiming for the beginning of September for the audit.
And that's the audit for the year that ended June 30th of 2017?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We are also trying to concurrently work on 17-18 and do some pre-audit work on that, so that audit is much smoother.
And to add to that, as the council is aware, we've had transition in the finance department, and I think we all need to recognize that. We have been fortunate to have an experienced interim finance director here who has assisted us in preparing this budget in a cohesive fashion and also helping us work through the CAFR obligations. So we look forward to presenting that to the council. We just want to make sure that everything we're presenting is accurate and factual, and working with the auditors to prepare that.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a couple. So comparing the last proposed budget adopted June 19, 2017 with this proposal, I see that one thing, would it be, I'm not very good at reading these things, would it be accurate to say that we are shifting funds around in that we are going into a deficit with the general fund, but that's made up with money from other funds to give us an overall positive balance? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then I see that we're going from previously the proposed excess was 3.24 million, and we're proposing 1.78 million. But we, of course, still an excess, still well in the black. So my last question is what is the balance in our reserves, and what is the balance in our reserves, and can you speak towards the policy for our reserves and the rainy day funds?
We can provide an update on reserve accounting. It's really not part of the operating budget, but in terms of any use of reserve funds, any of those requests come before the council for approval. For example, in the recent past, you've approved some reserve utilization for either a fleet vehicle or a IT upgrade for items such as the disaster recovery system. So each of those come through the council for approval before we reallocate those reserve funds.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now.
Are there any public comments? Come on up.
My name is Margie Marks, and I have a question on the chart on page 4, where it lists the position. Is the position for the social worker for the resource center, is that included in one of these, or is that someplace else in this, in these papers?
Are you referring to the HR technician?
I don't know. That could be the title. Is that the title of the position?
No, Margie, are you referring to the resource center person?
Yes. So I was just trying to figure out where it was in the budget.
It is in here.
In terms of, I can talk to it generally, in terms of the program area for the Human Services Program, we've actually done two things. One is the Neighborhood Services Manager, who will add a higher level administrative support to that overall program. Two is a part-time social worker. So it's actually more staff capacity as we've been able to identify that through the budget.
Great,
So
okay.
we'll look to retain both of those.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, and I wanted to say one thing briefly about the soda tax. Okay, I was one of the people, I went out and talked to the public to get them to vote for it, and one of their questions was, well, what's to keep the city council from spending the money on whatever they want? And I had to say, well, really nothing, but, you know, they have agreed to this process. So I'm not opposed to spending it on the crossing guards, but I think it gets to keeping faith with the voters, and I think somehow if this is going to be what's going forward, first of all, we hope that the soda tax money will be decreasing, and I only see the crossing guard money increasing. So I don't know if that's going to be a good match ultimately. Hopefully not, if we're successful. But I feel like there needs to be something going back to the public. If this is going to be what that money going forward is going to be spent on, I think we should go back to the public. I don't know if people, from what I hear, people are not opposed to it, but I think it would to me, it's a piece of keeping faith with the voters. So I would ask that the council, if that's your plan for the future for these funds, that you somehow get public input on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right.
Alan Maris, volunteer with the Albany Community Services Center. I had hoped to see that part-time social service person defined in this area where the neighborhood services program is too. A little concerned it's not in writing, but I trust you that it's happening. It's a very important part of our community services. The volunteers are not nearly as well qualified as a social service worker. We do our best, but we certainly need Allison back. I have a question similar to Councilmember Pilch's. With a significant amount of funding coming from other funds, so when I look at, let's say, under revenues, when I look at service charges, I see 1.5 million under general fund, and then we get almost another 4 million out of some other fund. Why do we separate these, and what are they called? Why don't we just have $5 million under the general fund for service charges?
Some of those service charges are in special revenues, which are restricted as to what you can use them for. Some of them are for police services. Some of them just depends on exactly what fund they're coming from. But those are more restricted funds than the general fund. They go for specific areas.
Recreation and community service expenditures, that's 2 million, and another million is being spent from a special fund. Could you be more specific? I understand the concept. If you can't, that's fine. If you can't.
I would probably encourage a review of the overall 2-year budget. Again, this is an update of what was adopted in fiscal year 17. So that really substantive document is on our website. What we're doing tonight is highlighting the changes to that budget. So in terms of going into detail on the actual revenue and expenditures programmed out for these 2 years, if there are not any significant changes, all of that would be static in the budget document online. And again, we will work towards a new 2-year budget where we will have a study session and additional engagement on all of the department areas.
Also, the surplus indicated of 1.8 million. It's nice to have that extra amount of money, but when the council member asked about the reserve fund, how would we fund the response
Go ahead.
to a major disaster?
Do you want to take that one?
To a major disaster, it depends on the nature of the disaster, and it depends on if it's declared an emergency, state of an emergency. Then we would be reimbursed for that natural disaster.
FEMA or somebody like that. Okay.
Exactly. So there are many categories of a disaster. Currently, the balance of funds that you see, we are being conservative with. We're holding it as you alluded to, a rainy day fund. That's the nature of a small city.
I think as somebody else said earlier, other cities would be jealous. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? There's no other public.
Just one more point of clarification, if I may. In terms of the sugar sweetened beverage tax, just a reminder that as part of that ordinance, the council is to hold a study session each year and receive comment and from the advisory bodies as well, and anyone engaged in the topic. So it would be an annual review of what is proposed for that funding source.
Right, thank you. And I just want to also add on page 3 of the salary schedule is the Resource Center Director. So it is here. Any other comments from council?
Well, that's just a salary schedule. I don't think that implies necessarily that that person is hired.
That gives us the opportunity to do that.
Yes. I'm sorry, where were we?
Comments.
I have some, but I don't. Okay. Well, I share Ms. Marks's concern about the use of the sugar-sweetened beverage tax. I grudgingly supported it when we allocated the funds towards the crossing guards, but I do think we need to be wary of what the original intent of that tax was, and I don't necessarily agree with my other council members that that funding is a very good nexus with what the money was intended for. I hope we can, more directly use that money in the next year towards items that really affect the health of children, or that more directly affect the health of children. That said, I think that I'd like to make some comments about the budget. One is that I think we do need a report on what our reserves are. I think ourselves and our public needs to know that. From what I understand, we don't have any concrete policies for how much reserves that we keep. And I think that that's something that we should develop so that we have an ongoing policy for what we are going to keep in a rainy day fund. And then I'd just like to note that I'm glad that it was the expenditures for the Recreation and Community Services Department was called out, and also that I note that the reclassifications of the Recreation and Community Services Department salaries result in a $76,000 increase, and overall the Recreation and Community Services budget is $2 million compared to, for example, community development, which is $1.5 million. I think that we need to be conscious of the fact that the Community Development Department is the economic engine of the city, is the part of the city that's going to help us continue to develop revenue. And whereas the Recreation and Community Services Department does wonderful things for our city, has a bit of a nexus with economic development, but is not directly related to economic development or redevelopment of the city, or development of the city. So I think we just need to keep that in mind when the budget comes up, that it's always my intention to support community development in a big way so that we can have the best economic end, so that we can be prepared as a city with little funding to always be looking for new sources of revenue and to keep that economic engine healthy. That's it.
Well, I definitely agree about feeding the cow, as Mr. Pilch would do. But I also want to say, as much as we love all of our different programs, part of budgeting is making hard choices. And community development choices that serve as investments that can actually help improve the overall health of our city, our productive capacity is particularly attractive, but then we always have to make tough choices. I have a few other comments. One is the comments about that we're in the black, we're in a sound financial condition, we've got a nice excess of revenue over expenditures is all terrific, but I would add a couple of cautions. There are a couple of ways that cities borrow money without it showing up in its financials, and the two that are very common in California, and I'm afraid somewhat afflict our city, are deferral of pavement maintenance. Basically, as the streets deteriorate, the people of the future are we're pushing that expense to the kids. When they grow up, they're the ones who are going to have to fix it. And so we want to keep in mind, keep an eye on our infrastructure and make sure that our generation is doing its share. The other is pension underfunding, and we're kind of in the middle of the pack of California cities, which normally you're in the middle of the pack, and that's pretty good. In the case of California pensions, that's a real concern. That's something that, I don't want people thinking, gee, we have this nice revenue, why aren't we spending this surplus? There are issues, there are kind of longer term and bigger picture fiscal issues that need to be addressed. On the CAFR and, and sort of our process here, our city manager is new in her position, and I don't want this to seem like I'm criticizing you particularly, Nicole, but I think it's sort of an institutional issue with our city. It's really not acceptable to have our audit run this late. And the fact is, I do understand there's been transition, both in personnel and software, but we actually have to anticipate this. People turn over, software is superseded by other software. And as you're managing to solve this problem, I would urge you to keep in mind the need to build in some resiliency and redundancy in the system so that if someone leaves a position, that doesn't shut things down for a year. If a new software package has to be implemented, that doesn't shut things down for a very long time. So I hope that will be taken into account. In budgeting, I would like us to, one of the things that we should do as an elected body is make some of the hard choices that need to be made. We've got people out here talking about one program and another, great ones that we have, ones that need more funding, ones that we should have but don't, and how are we gonna get those going? I'm delighted we have this neighborhood program manager starting. I think that's particularly for police communications and emergency communications, but also for support of the resource center and so forth, and rent review. This person is going to have a big, diverse portfolio and a very difficult job, and we'll have to clarify that somewhat. But what I would like to see the next time we do a budget would be more of a relation between the budget and the strategic plan, sort of showing how the budgeting supports the strategic plan and not just the feel-good stuff, you guys wanted to do this and look, we're doing that, but the tough stuff, it was difficult to decide between this and we're recommending this. But ultimately, it's up to the electeds to say, yes, we'll pay for this, and no, we won't pay for that. So I hope we could see more of that in the next round. That's my comments.
Thank you. I don't have any particular comments, except Elizabeth, to thank you for all the work that you did. You've stepped into a difficult situation, and I really appreciate that you've gotten us this far. Thank you for that.
Indeed.
It's actually my pleasure, and I like hearing what the council is saying.
Thank you.
With that, can we get a motion? There's 2 resolutions on the table. Yes, 2 resolutions. Can I get a motion, please?
Let's see. Oh, my screen went off.
How about I do the first one, you can do the second.
Sounds good.
How about I'll move Resolution 2018-88, approving the update to the City of Albany operating budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 and authorizing appropriations.
Should I move the other, or do we vote on this one? Or
Well, since he stopped, let's vote on them separately, since he stopped. I'll second that.
Councilmember Pelch,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason,
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid.
Yes. Okay, Rochelle, you want to make your motion?
And I will move Resolution 2018-89. The resolution of the City Council approving the updated fiscal year 2017 to 18 and 2018-19 salary schedule.
Second.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid.
Yes, and the motion carries. Okay, that brings us to, I think, our last item, 11-2, designation of voting delegates and alternates for the League of California Cities Annual Conference. May I have a staff report, please?
Good evening. This is a recurring annual item for the council to designate voting delegate to the annual business meeting held as part of the League of California Cities annual conference that's scheduled in mid-September. Council can designate one voting delegate and up to 2 alternates.
My policy committee is meeting at the conference, so I'd be happy to be an alternate, and
I'll be attending. I've already registered, got my plane ticket, so I'll be there. I'm happy to be the delegate.
I thought it was in Sacramento.
It's in Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I would propose Mayor McQuaid as the delegate and myself as the alternate, if
I
that's...
will move that.
Before you do all that, is there any public comment?
No.
Seeing none? Okay, you have your motion?
Motion and a second. I'll second.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid.
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, other business announcement of events, future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items?
Yeah, I'll just record for the record that I think the with no rush to it, we ought to have a presentation of the city's reserves and a presentation from staff about possible policies for reserve funds.
Okay. The next city council meeting will be on Monday, July 2nd. And with that, we are adjourned. And we know who the chatty ones are.